Welcome back to another video from the shed end with myself, T Dot, as always. Thank you very much for joining me now. Usually I'm upbeat, usually I'm a bit more positive. Usually I've got something to say about a match, but if I'm going to be honest, I don't want to spend any time talking about Manchester City versus Chelsea in the FA Cup. There's not much to say. I think the problems are much bigger than the FA Cup. I think the problems are much bigger. I think we are in a position right now where we are not in a good place at all. And I wrote down, as the match was going on, I was writing down things I wanted to talk about. Things I want to talk about. Let's forget Manchester City. Let's forget the FA Cup for a minute, because this club is in turmoil. This is not a reaction. This is me doing it fresh after the game. I've had my sleep. It's the day after. I was going to record straight after the game, and I thought, let's not do that. Because when you record after a game, your passion is through the roof. Your anger is through the roof. Your frustration is through the roof. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be level-headed. I want to give an opinion, and it's just my opinion. It's no one else's that's been on the channel. It's not Theo's. It's not anyone's who's ever been on this channel. It's my opinion. We are in turmoil right now. We're in turmoil. Briefly, on the game last night, if you watch that game, and if you're stupid enough like me to watch the whole game, you'll see that this club, it's not just the players. It's not just the players. If it was just the players, one or two players, I'd understand. But it's the whole team. The whole team from front to back is not good enough. And when you talk about who is responsible for that, yes, the players have to take some responsibility because they're on the pitch. They're the ones kicking the ball. They're the ones that are passing backwards, sideways, backwards. Not the manager. It's the players that are doing that. But when you see it week in, week out, and you're seeing this poor, just stagnant football that doesn't have any approach to it. There's no nothing to it. There's no game plan. There's nothing. That's the manager. That's the manager. The manager has to take the responsibility for how the players are playing as well. We can all sit here and say, the squad isn't good enough. The squad needs a rebuild and blah, blah. It does 100%. Let's be balanced in the discussion. But the players, Jorginho, Mason Mount, we're going to get onto them. We're going to get onto them today because it isn't good enough. It is not good enough. Jorginho in the midfield last night, in other games, it's not good enough. You've got to go out of the club, get him sold. We're talking about offering Mason Mount 300 grand a week. In the comments, please someone tell me, what does Mason Mount bring to the team? What does he do? When was his last brilliant performance? When has he done it consistently, back to back? How is he a Cobham finest when he doesn't do it back to back every game? How can we call these players generational talents? When we watch Phil Foden, or we watch someone of that caliber, they're going to come on the pitch and do something. They're going to come and change the game. They're going to try and score a goal. They're going to make something happen. They're going to be creative. Mason Mount doesn't do any of it. He just runs around. What does he do? I don't want to dig him out. Kai Havertz, another one. What does he do? When was his last performance? His last performance, which was probably his best performance, was actually the Champions League final in Porto against Manchester City. That was his last performance where he played well. That's his last brilliant performance. And even then, we have to give the fact that Pep lost his head in the final and overthought the final. So realistically, did he actually play well? Or was he just lucky that he was in the right place at the right time and the ball was delivered to him on the plate and he couldn't miss? But that was his his brilliant performance was in the Champions League final. I mean, come on. If it's not good enough. Mason Mount, 300 grand a week. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. Not good enough at all. We're talking about Koulibaly coming into a team. He looks worse than Christensen when Christensen didn't want to play at the club. I remember talking to so many fans about Rudiger and how people were saying to me, Rudiger should just go. He needs to come out the club. I think I said it myself at one point. But we dropped a ball letting Rudiger leave the club. We let him go for free. Rudiger was arguably, next to Thiago Silva, our best centre-back partnership in a while. And yes, it didn't work out. Yes, he had his moments where he kind of didn't play well. But when he got down to it under Thomas Tuchel, he played really well. Azpilicueta got to go. These players have to go. Because we've seen enough now. We've seen enough. Let the kids come in. Kovacic and Jorginho. There was a moment in the game and I don't know how they can't string passes together. I'm not just blaming the players for that. I'm blaming the manager. The manager has to take responsibility for some of what's happening on the pitch. Because I keep hearing, trust the process. And Brighton, look what he done at Brighton. Trust the process. Look at Arteta. We don't even know if Arteta and Arsenal are going to win the league. They could bottle the league and are we still going to say trust their process? Look at Man United. They thought Oli was trusting their process and it didn't work out. So where's Oli now? Graham Potter, and I hate to be the one that says this, is in knee deep in shit at the moment. He's in a position where he's out of his depth. He is. Whether it works in 2 or 3 years, we'll see. We're going to get onto Graham Potter in a minute, but he's out of his depth. You can't tell me this crop of players cannot play football. I'm not talking about thrashing teams 3 or 4-0. I'm not talking about 5-6-0, not even 2-0. I'm not even talking about winning games. I'm talking about winning the pitch, the ball, the battles on the pitch. If you can't do that, that's the manager. If you're picking the same team week in, week out, which he theoretically does majority of the time, he might mix it up, he might throw in a new centre back, he might change Azpilicueta to someone else, he might do this or that, he might swap and change the front three slightly. But the core players, the Mason Mounts, the Jorginhos, they're in the team every single week. Azpilicueta on the team every single week. Last night, he could have played Selena in goal. He could have put Marcus Bettinelli in goal. He played Kepa after a disaster class on Thursday. He put him back in the team. Mason Mount took a knock. He didn't play Thursday. But what has he done to show you that he should be back in the team over Carney Chukwuemeka? What's he done? He hasn't done a thing. Kai Havertz up front. You've just brought a number 9 in Fofana. He's got a squad number now. You could have played him. You brought him on, fair enough. But you could play him. You start him. You give Kai Havertz something to think about. If you're going to play Kai Havertz week in, week out, and he's giving you 2 out of 10s, 3 out of 10s, why is he in the team? What's he doing? That's the manager. Graham Potter has to take some responsibility for that. This is down to Graham Potter. And he's out of his depth. We talk about Brighton. Oh, look what he did. Brighton finished 15th and 16th under Graham Potter. They had one season where they finished, I think, in the top half and got 51 points. Now, if that's what we're basing the benchmark on, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. This guy has a 5-year contract. He's not even a year into it. So here's where the problems come in, because Todd Bowley's put him on a 5-year contract. The players that we're signing are on 6, maybe 7-year contracts, the American way. The NFL way, the NBA way, where you're on a 6-year, 7-year deal. This is football in England. I don't really know many players that are currently on 7-year deals at any other club. So that's a long time to be on a contract. And this is where we're at that crossroads where something bad could really happen at the club, because we've got rid of the likes of Drinkwater, who are on long contracts, weren't being played. Ross Barkley had his contract terminated as a mutual agreement to leave the club. He got paid up. Some of these players, Bakayoko, Baba Rahmans, that we joked about on this channel, on other channels, were at the club for a long period of time. Now, if we sack Graham Potter and the new manager comes in and says, you know what, I'm not really keen on that Fofana guy you've just brought in. I'm not really keen on Mark Cucurella. These guys were on big contracts for a long time at the club. So you're back at square one again, where you've got all these players, you're sending them out on loan, they're going to AC Milan like Bakayoko, they're going here and there and everywhere, and they're on long contracts. So tell me what process am I supposed to be trusting? Because Graham Potter hasn't shown any of us anything to say he is the man for this job. So yeah, I'm all for backing the process and trusting it, and I want to trust anything. But if you're not showing me the basics, you're not showing me how to get the ball from goalkeeper to striker and retaining the ball and shooting, XG of 0.1. If you're not telling me or showing me what we're doing on that pitch, what you've been working on day in, day out on the training ground, and I'm not seeing that in the game, we've got problems. Because I don't support the manager and I don't support the players, I support the club. I support the club. That's my thing. I don't care about players coming and going and managers coming and going. I support the club. So my problem is my club's playing poor at the moment. Managers come and go. Now, can we sack Graham Potter? I'd love to say yes. And I hope we do, if this carries on. I hope we do. If it carries on, we got to sack him. We got to get him out of the club. Because he hasn't done... We're talking about Brighton like they've won the Champions League, or they've won the Premier League, or they've won back-to-back FA Cups. They haven't done anything. So what are we saying? He plays attractive football. That's his gold star on his CV. They played attractive football. He can't even use the excuse that he played attractive football and Brighton were crying out and still are crying out for a striker. But he still finished 10th with them and he's still scoring goals. He can't even do that with this squad, and this squad's better than Brighton's squad. So what are we? I don't understand what we're basing it on. What are we basing Graham Potter on? That he had a good time at Brighton. Brighton. No disrespect to Brighton fans. I'm sorry, I keep using Brighton as, but we could go and play a conference team right now, and I guarantee you, we put out the squad we put out last night. I guarantee you, we do not win that team. That game, we don't win, because these players haven't just downed tools, they mentally switched off. Now, is that the manager or is it the players? If it was one or two players, I'd say it's the player, but the whole team, you can't tell me the whole team switches off mentally, physically, and it's all the players. There's no way that happens. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. That's the manager. That has to be on the manager. It has to be. Let's talk about the long road. I wrote down here the long road. Here's the long road. Graham Potter, as I said, is on a 5-year deal. He's on a 5-year deal. Now, people keep saying trust the process. Look at Arsenal. Look how long it took for Arsenal to get where they are. They might win the Premier League. That's fair enough. That's a fair comment. I'll give everyone that. It's a fair comment. But here's the problem. When Arsenal were going through their rough patch, there was only Man City and Liverpool at the top of the league. When Liverpool went through their rough patch, it was only us and maybe City coming up. Now, you look at the top four, Manchester City, Liverpool will be there or thereabouts. They'll sign some players. Over the next 2 windows, they're going to sign some players. City, Liverpool, Arsenal look like they're up for top fours and trying to compete for the league now. Tottenham, you could say, if they can get their scoring boots on with Harry Kane and Son linking up again, might bring in a couple more players in the summer, depending on Conte's stays. But you get my point. Newcastle. Yeah, I know they got beat at the weekend, but Newcastle. So there's 5 teams already. So if you're talking about trying to get into the top 4, it's not like early 2000s, 2013, 15. It's not a case of you come out the Champions League one season and you come back into it. Those times have gone. So if we come out the Champions League, I don't think we're getting back into that crop of... We'll become mid-table again. Like when I was growing up as a child. Check the kits. This is what I mean. I've been there. I've seen it. But what I'm saying to you is the amount of money we've spent and we're continuing to spend, we should not be talking about finishing in Europa Conference League or Europa League spots. We should be pushing for the league. The amount of money we've got, the most expensive left back in Marc Cucurella, who looks a shadow of himself. The same Cucurella that everyone was telling me, well, he's played under Graham Potter. It's brilliant. Bring him in. I don't think I've seen a brilliant. Tell me the time Marc Cucurella's blew the game apart. Tell me when he's taken a man on and put the ball in the box. Has he got an assist this season? Has he scored any goals? Someone tell me when he's actually put in a decent performance. I could go on. I could go on. My point is, we are not just going to be bouncing back into those Champions League spots. If we come out of it, it's a lot of money that we're losing out on as well. These owners seem to care more about money. Respectfully, they do. It's their money, or majority of their money that they put up. But they look like they care about the money, the business side of things. We have to give the previous owner, the previous regime, their credit, because they wanted the best for the club. People keep saying, well, they kept sacking managers. And yeah, it worked. That's why. When they sack a manager off, it's not working, he goes. If Graham Potter was under the old regime, he'd be gone by now. Let's be honest. But he wouldn't be on a 5-year deal either. You think back to Lampard, and Lampard was on a year contract with an option to extend. The same with Thomas Tuchel. He's on an 18-month contract. It was a smart move from the club. You brought in a manager that's inexperienced and you've put him on a 5-year deal. And he's not even a year into it and the pressure's already mounting on him. Now, as an owner, surely you would put him on an 80, maybe even a 24, maybe a 2-year contract with an option to extend. But you put him on a 5-year deal. So you have to trust him now. Because if you don't, and you try and bring in someone else, Zinedine Zidane's out there, Luis Enrique's out there, Pochettino's out there. You try and bring one of these players, one of these managers in, and they say, I don't want that player. I'm not keen on him. I want to bring in this player. I want to bring in that player. And I want a new left back. What are you doing with Marc Cucurella? What are you doing with Ben Chilwell? What are you doing with these players you've just brought into the team? I'm not keen on Carney Chukwuemeka. Where are they going? In hindsight, the club should have kept Thomas Tuchel. I know people don't want to hear his name. Yes, he's left the club. Yes, we've moved on. The club should have kept him. Let's be honest. The club should have also kept Bruce Buck, Petr Cech, Marina Granovskaya. They should have kept them all. You can't come in as an owner of something. If I'm the owner of QuickFit and I come in and I sack all my experienced mechanics and I'm left with 2 assistants or 2 apprentices, but the cars keep coming in and the cars need to be fixed. And I've only got my apprentices who don't really know what's going on. They haven't been here for long. And then now I've got to start fixing cars because I'm the owner, but I've sacked all my experienced people. If you do that, you're going to fail because you've got no one. All the people at the club that knew what was going on are no longer there. I understand you want to bring in your own people and you do that in project management. You do that in any kind of business, whatever. You do that. You bring in your own people. But you do it on a gradual, you phase by phase approach. You phase people in, you phase people out. He got rid of the whole crop of people above the club and got rid of them in one go and left a massive gap for so long. Think back to the summer. We were out for Rafinha, was out for Gabriel Jesus, was out for this player, that player. We ended up with Cucurella and Raheem Sterling. The amount of players we were linked with, we were talking to, negotiating with, everything, even Ronaldo at one point. It was a scattergun approach. And this is the same thing that seems to be happening in this window with Enzo Fernandez. A player that we need in the squad. And we're playing haggle. We're haggling with Benfica. Why did we go? We rang them and said we're going to pay 120 million. We got there and we started to offer 90 million euros. This is not the approach you need. If you need a player, you need the player. You go all out to get him. It doesn't matter what the cost is. You need this player to keep you in the conversation for top 4. You need this player to make sure you don't drop into the bottom half. If we're not careful, Graham Potter will take us into the bottom half of the Premier League this season. 100%. because he's not good enough. He is not good enough, and the owners seem to be backing him. But the owners seem to be there's no foundation at the club at the moment. There's nothing. There's no project to trust. There's no process to trust. What is the project that we're building here? If it's a case of let's cut out Champions League football for 5 years and let's try and rebuild and come back in the sixth season, in Graham Potter's last year of his contract, then we're on the right approach. But I can tell you from now, the football is going to be ugly for 5 seasons. And we'll be doing videos like this for 5 seasons, because the football at the moment tells me that not only do the players not want to play for Graham Potter hasn't got a clue. I've been to games. I've watched him on the touchline. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do a thing. He just sits there or he stands there. And I'm not saying you have to be animated all the time as a manager. You don't have to be the Conte or the Jose or the Mikel Arteta. You don't have to be that person. But show something. Show me something. You're just sat there on the bench. You don't move. I used to joke about Potter reminding me of Oli Solskjaer. He reminds me of him so much. The press conferences, the way that he doesn't do anything on a touchline, the substitutions, the post-match press conferences, they all scream Oli to me. And that's the process I feel like we're following. Who in their right mind said, I'm going to buy a club. I need a blueprint to go with. And they said, let's follow Brighton's. Brighton, not Liverpool, not Man City. Brighton, a team that finished 15th and 16th and finished one season in the Premier League on 51 points. Top half finish. That's the blueprint we're following. A team that doesn't score many goals. I mean, make it make sense to me, because it doesn't make sense at all at the moment. A team that does not score goals, we're following their blueprint. That manager that couldn't get the team to score goals, we've brought him to our club when we're already struggling under Thomas Tuchel to score goals. We brought him to our club. We gave him a blank checkbook and said, try and sign these players. That hasn't worked. Let's backtrack actually, sorry. We allowed Thomas Tuchel to sign players with a blank checkbook. Then we sacked him, and now we brought in another manager, and now we're telling him to go and sign players. And the players that he currently has, you're trying to tell me is not good enough to get a goal. I'm sorry. If it doesn't make sense to me, someone in the comments try and make sense for me, because it does not make any sense whatsoever. I'm confused. I'm confused how anyone can see any positives right now at this club. How can we see anything positive in this team? There's nothing positive. There's nothing positive. We've got Fulham, we've got Palace, we've got Liverpool in the next couple of weeks. We haven't even spoke about Borussia Dortmund. We've got Dortmund in a couple of weeks. This season, write the season off. But if anyone can honestly, these are the questions I need answered in the comments. What does Mason Mount bring to this team? Not just Mason Mount. Let's talk about Kai Havertz. Let's talk about Jorginho. People mention to me, we haven't even spoke about injuries, but people will say we've got 10 injuries. I understand that, but I'm telling you from now, if the team that played yesterday, the team that played on Thursday, the team that played against Nottingham Forest, if you're telling me that team can't create chances, get a shot on target, or even play some decent football, buckle up. It's going to be a long season. We're going to be in a long period of transition for years. Because it's going to be a long season. It's going to be a long season. Seasons. Let's make that seasons with the S on the end. It's going to be a long seasons, because we are in turmoil. Injuries permitted, yes. But are you trying to tell me that Jorginho, Kovacic, Kai Havertz, Mason Mount, Koulibaly, Kepa, they can't put in a shift? And your only player that's putting in a shift against Manchester City is Lewis Hall. Credit to Bashir Humphreys as well. I thought he played okay. Very good coming into the defence. Trevor Chalobah, I thought played well last night. But are you trying to tell me this team When one goal goes in, folds like a deck chair. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about all of this, because as you can tell, I started the video annoyed. Now I'm angry again. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Is it time for Graham Potter to give up? Is it time for Chelsea to look elsewhere? Should we stick with Graham Potter and see this one out and see how it plays out? And then we can have the conversation. But let me know your thoughts. This has been T-Dot from the Shed End. Until next time, stay safe. Thank you very much for watching.